Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today we're going to be discussing and looking into a hypothetical 2020 presidential matchup between Donald Trump and Senator Bernie Sanders, the current Democratic frontrunner. So, starting off, let's cover the safe states for Senator Sanders. Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Virginia, basically the entirety of the direct East Coast, Maine's General District, as well as Maine's 1st District, Illinois, Minnesota, and Hawaii. I feel like I'm missing a state. New York. Now, the reason why all of these states are safe is for a simple reason, and not too much of a jump in logic. Historically, incumbent presidents don't win states they lost in their initial presidential bid. This is just how things work. If a state didn't vote for them the first time, they have to do really well and have high favorability in order to gain new seats and new states. Donald Trump has not done that. We have polling over and over to show he has not done that. And while I'm sure there will be people in the comment section who complain and say, no, Donald Trump is amazing, he's done great things, polling from these states and nationwide doesn't show that. As such, Senator Sanders, in my book, these seats are safe for him, even if they'll be close, especially when compared to one another. For example, California is going to be a blowout for him, while Nevada is going to be a bit closer. That's just how it is. That doesn't change the fact they're safe. Just because the final count will be close doesn't mean that the state is unsafe for that candidate. For Donald Trump, he's going to be able to hold the Great Plains with ease. We'll get back to Nebraska's 2nd District. Utah, Alaska as well as not Georgia, as well as a good chunk of the Deep South, namely this Appalachian spine over here as well as Indiana. He'll also be able to hang on to basically every state along the Mississippi as well as Oklahoma and South Carolina. And thus we have our starting lines. Senator Sanders with 232 electors, Donald Trump with only 113, half of what Senator Sanders has. Now, the rub of this is the fact that almost all of these states favor the Republican, which is where Donald Trump will build up ground. However, if the Democrats or Senator Sanders focus in on certain states, they will easily be able to win the nomination. In my opinion, their biggest weakness will come from spreading their marketing too thin, focusing on states that, hey, we could win, as opposed to states we will need to win. That's what happened to Hillary Clinton. She thought she had the Rust Belt, so she focused in on states like Texas and Arizona. States that she didn't need to win, but wanted to win to make a statement. And we all saw how that turned out. So, to help even things out, we'll give Donald Trump a few likelies now. These are Kansas, Iowa, and Mississippi. Not Ohio, and we'll get back to Ohio in a moment. Oh, as well as Nebraska's 2nd District. Now, these two states, as well as Nebraska's 2nd District, are all traditional blue-collar plains states. The main difference here is the fact Iowa, and I'll just refer to this as Omaha, have been trending more red, while Kansas has been trending more blue. But the right candidate, and I think Senator Sanders meets one of the biggest criteria for this, being a white man, has a strong chance of winning statewide in these states. He also has a decent message on farmers and rural areas, as well as all three of these locations have strong urban centers which could turn out for a Democrat and be able to flip the states. Iowa has Des Moines and Cedar Rapids. Omaha-Lincoln has, of course, Omaha-Lincoln. And Kansas has Kansas City and Lawrence. If they get the right amount of turnout, the Democrats could flip these seats, but it would require a concerted effort on their part. As such, Republicans can consider these seats as good as safe unless they're attacked by the Democrats. Mississippi, on the other hand, is a unique case. Mississippi has been trending more and more blue, to the extent I actually think Mississippi is, I love using these analogies, Mississippi is the new Texas, a state that is red but showing a lot of signs of turning blue, but hasn't taken any of the steps towards it yet or had a close election. But each year, the amount of people voting for the Democrats increase, and the amount of people voting for the Republicans remains stagnant. Now, I will mention, this is likely red. And anyone who's about to say, well, it got really close in the midterm and during the off-year election, all I have to say to you is, you have a lot lower turnout in Mississippi on off-year elections and midterm elections. Presidential elections, Republicans gain about 200,000 in turnout. As such, if those Republicans don't have a reason to turn out, such as not being afraid Donald Trump's going to lose, or genuine conflict between Donald Trump and Senator Sanders, then they won't turn out and Sanders will win. As such, Mississippi is likely, even though there might be some, it's a very red likely. Now, Senator Sanders is going to have a much easier time with his likely states because his background are these three districts, almost parallel to this area over here. The only difference is they have more delegates. Michigan. Michigan turning red in 2016, I think, was a wake-up call to a lot of Democrats. They need to refocus on the state, as well as a lot of Democrats inside of Michigan turning out to vote for the Democratic candidate. We saw that in 2018, where they managed to flip the governor race and hold on to the Senate seat. The fact there's a Senate seat there as well encourages me to think there will be higher Democratic turnout than normal. And the fact that in raw vote totals, Democrats should have won the state house. I think it was something like 54 to 45 or something along those lines. But due to gerrymandering, they didn't. As such, I'm rather bullish on Michigan turning blue in this upcoming election for anyone, but there's a stronger chance for Sanders, who has who has strong favorables with the African American community, as well as that sort of blue-collar vibe, which works really well to turn out normally non-voters. This is the same reason as Pennsylvania is in the likely category, because he turns out blue-collar voters for him, and there's a chance he can flip Trump guys to him. Once we get into a general election, assuming Sanders is the nominee, then there's some room where we'll start getting some serious polling, but Sanders polls well in in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Hence, I'm willing to put these states as likely. Lastly, we have Maine's 2nd District. Typically a red district, but in the sort of turning more and more blue each year category. Senator Sanders, coming from Vermont, gets that sort of New England hometown vibe in Maine's 2nd District. This could be enough to flip the seat for him. Enough that I'm willing to say it's likely for him. And this is interesting because these three likely states put Sanders at 269 votes, one away from clinching the nomination. So all he needs to do is turn one of these last states or one of these likely red states for him, and it's over. Hell, if he somehow manages to win Omaha-Lincoln, he would win. But right now, I'm not putting that as a likely chance of it happening. So we'll go state by state. And I'm going to spoil something for you. Wisconsin leans blue. Senator Sanders has a good track record with the blue-collar workers of Wisconsin. Plus, while it's been a smaller amount, they did see a relatively similar level of sudden blue turnout in the blue wave during the midterm. That's enough for me to believe this state is not completely lost to the Democrats, though I actually believe it is going the direction of Iowa right now. We'll have to see if this holds in 2020. If the entire state goes blue, I'm willing to say it's probably stabilized as a purple state. But if it goes red, then it's a red-leaning state. But for Sanders, who has good blue-collar connections, plus the fact I've been hearing rumors of a Tammy Baldwin vice presidency, which would also really help him, I put this state as leans right now, because even with the Tammy Baldwin endorsement, there's a solid chance he can win this state. Now going down to Ohio, one I imagine a lot of people are going to have many opinions about. I think it is leans for the Democrats, or in this case, Senator Sanders. He's got that Sherrod Brown, working class, very pro-union vibe and credit. That's really good if you're running for the presidency and you want to win Ohio. To the extent I think Ohio could flip, but it's not, I'd say 60% of the time still going for the Republicans. Ohio, in my opinion, is the prototype of what could be happening to all three of these Rust Belt states. A very blue, working class, formerly union-based state going more and more red with the election cycles as they go on. I think Pennsylvania and Michigan are heading more in the direction of states like Virginia. Wisconsin might be going more in the Ohio-Iowa area. We'll have to see. But that's why I'm putting it as leans. Now, we're not doing Texas yet. Texas is going to be the last one we do because it's the biggest question mark. But Arizona, which is another leans Democrat, so leans Sanders. As Nevada showed, plus polling has showed for, at this point, the better part of a year, Senator Sanders polls incredibly well with Latinos. He is great at getting turnout, great at getting support, great at getting them to canvass for him. And in a state like Arizona, which is getting more and more Latino by the year, without that coalition, you don't win. That puts Arizona in already purple state to turn more and more Democratic. And I think with Sanders on the top of the ticket, there's a better chance the Democrats take this seat than without him. Or these votes than without him. But the Republicans still are very entrenched in the state, throughout the state house, throughout the judiciary. Hell, we're going to have a Senate race there too, which could either really benefit Sanders or hurt him. But either way, I think a strong Sanders coalition in that state leans the state towards Bernie Sanders. North Carolina's a similar set of circumstances, but actually not identical. For example, it's not based on Latino turnout. It's rather due to having a galvanizing force at the top of the ticket, like Senator Sanders, someone who's been shown to be able to increase voter turnout, will help in a state like North Carolina. A state that, by my measure, is actually going to be leans for the Democrats no matter what happens. I think they are a lot more blue than people are giving them credit for. So I say it's leans mostly for factors that aren't actually Sanders related, but rather because he galvanizes that support, it solidifies it as a lean state. Because if you can trust support's going to show up, then if all you need to win, I should clarify, if all you need to win is support, and you have a guy who's good at bringing out supporters, that puts you in the leans category that puts it in the leans category for you. Now we have Georgia. Georgia is going to be leans red. Before this video, I went back and forth in my mind on whether or not it was leans or tilt. And I come out to leans for one reason. So I could see Senator Sanders having trouble galvanizing Southern black voters in the same way someone like a Barack Obama can. Southern black voters are shown to be more traditional and conservative than the rest of the Democratic base. And while there's a solid chance Georgia could flip just for a Democrat, plus with 2 Senate races on the ticket, there's a lot of factors to consider. But if I had to say someone who is outside of his base besides wealthy white people, the next people I'd list would be older African Americans, especially the above 55 crowd. And if they don't feel motivated to turn out, it moves Georgia from a tilt to a leans Republican. Now down to Florida. Florida is going to be leans Republican. Florida is a state that's been getting more and more red, and a lot of people have wanted to disagree with this fact for one simple reason. During the Obama years, during the Bush years, Florida was the state. It was the purple state, the crown jewel. You win Florida, you win the nation. But now we're in a position where the Democrats can win without needing Florida. And also the fact that Florida, out of all of the states the Democrats abandoned during the Obama years, to be because they abandoned almost all of their state parties. But Florida and the South suffered the most from it. Florida has gotten more and more red, and after the 2018 midterm, even though there's been reenfranchisement amongst felons, Florida is looking more and more red, and the fact that Sanders' Latino coalition that'll do him so well in states the Democrats are already safe in does not necessarily extend to Floridian Cubans, many of whom fall in that more affluent, I'd say white category than middle-class Latino, and as such are more likely to vote against Sanders or just not vote with him. And as such, I'd put it as leans Republican. Donald Trump benefits where Sanders can't turn out the vote. Lastly, we have Texas. Now, Texas is one I've been going over in my head before I even considered that Sanders was the frontrunner. Because Texas is a state that once it flips blue, to give you an idea, all Sanders needs on top of, or any Democrat needs on top of Hillary's 2018 victories, is Texas. And they have enough seats to win, or enough delegates to win. And I've mulled it over in my head multiple times. Well, maybe Biden has the best shot. Maybe Sanders. Heck, maybe Bloomberg would have the best shot at taking Texas. And after doing a lot of thinking and a lot of consideration, if it's even possible to put Texas even tilt red or even tilt blue, the conclusion I've come to is, with someone like Sanders on the ticket who can galvanize Latino support, with someone like Beto O'Rourke running around Texas drumming up supporters for him, with the fact that in multiple polls you see Democrats nearly breaking 50 at the state level, I am willing to put right now, miles away from the general election, with a lot of people's brains off, Texas as tilt Republican. This means there is only one tilt state, and everyone should know I only do tilts because I don't do toss-ups. And Texas is as close to a pure 50-50 chance as I can get. And tilt Republican just by default. If Sanders can galvanize the urban vote, the rural vote, and the Latino vote, Texas is going to, and has shown an ability to do that before the general election, Texas is going to go tilt blue. And that would be devastating to the Republicans. So these are the final results. Sanders at 305, Trump at 233. A strong victory for Sanders. Maybe not something that someone would call a blowout, but a strong victory, and enough that someone would go, Trump definitely lost. There's no room for contention here. There's no one state, or one of these, not one state, California could be flipped and it would be a big deal, but none of these contentious races that could be flipped that would immediately hand the nomination over to Trump. And as such, if you like the video, please subscribe and click the notification bell for more content. If you have a comment you'd like to make, please leave a comment down below. And as always, please leave a like on the video. It helps grow the channel. Otherwise, as always, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.